Welcome to season 3 of You Are Significant, the podcast where real stories are told by real people that create more awareness of your own significance. You are created on purpose for a purpose with seeds of greatness inside of you. Ready to grow? Let's get down to it. I'm so excited you're here today for this episode. I've got Phyllis Anderson here with us, and she has been a guest before on You Are Significant. She came and shared about her care folio. So if you missed that episode, I will link it in the show notes so that you can find it real easy to hear all about that. It's such an amazing tool that she has developed and with such wisdom and love and care included. So, but she has come back today to share more of her story, and it's been a minute. So, a lot has happened, a lot of the Lord working in her life, and wow, just some of the things that she has shared with me in our pre time together. I can't wait for her to share about with you and for you to hear more. So, welcome back, Phyllis.
Oh my goodness, Darlene, thank you so much for having me again. And I mean, it is an honor to be here in this space with you, especially just sharing what God has done in my life. And I love that you have a platform where people can do that. So
Yeah.
big love.
Yeah. Well, Phyllis and I have had the blessing to work together in masterminds and some really neat spaces that are about growth and about sharing and getting vulnerable. So I know Phyllis is so good at that. But also, we know when we're entrepreneurial women, we can be selective. And so I just appreciate so much Phyllis's heart that she wants to
Mhm.
share more of her story today. So, I don't even know exactly where you want to begin. Did you have something in mind that you were thinking of? We often go back to the beginning, like when you were a kid and how you grew up, and because that is our inner child, and
Mhm.
we carry her, that version of ourselves. She heals, she changes too, but it is often a place that we start when we first start our growth. So, just open up and tell us about her.
Tell us about her.
Tell us
She
about
has healed a lot. She
Mm,
really has been through some things and she's healed along the way. And that's what's so beautiful is that
yeah.
personal relationship with God, having faith. That is, I could just never say enough about that. Is there's just, it just makes it just makes it so much easier. There's still a struggle. Life is still, there's struggles, but just having that faith gives me someone else to hand it over to. And so, keeping in with your theme, because when you said living a life of significance
Mhm.
and with the fruits of the spirit, I just thought, man, this fits perfectly with my journey and where I'm at right now. Because what I've learned is that significance begins with surrender.
Mm.
And so
So true.
I would love to kind of go to a place that over the last 3 years I have felt because I'm 56 years old and I could go back really far. But I think it all just kind of ties into where I'm at today and how this surrender really became such a word for me. And I didn't know I was hanging on to stuff. I did not know I had a grip and I was trying to control and, not really giving it to God, and I thought I was. So
That's such a
so
common thing that
Mhm,
us as women and humans, because that fleshly side of us, ego brain, right, feels like if we can hold on, then it knows we can stay alive. And that ego brain only cares about keeping us alive, whether what we did was what was best for us or not. So then surrender is like the opposite of that. It's like, well, let's just
mhm,
keep everything the same. Phyllis stayed alive, Darlene stayed alive, so we did a good job. But that's, I think, the big difference between us and animals is we don't operate off of instinct. We have a soul and we
mm,
are able to choose. And so once we realize the power that God made inside of us. He breathed into us the breath of life, and we he breathed into us a soul. And so that
Mhm.
gives us the ability to surrender.
Yes. Yeah, so if you don't mind, I'm gonna start with coming from a long line of people with addiction.
Okay, girl,
So if
tell us.
that's okay, can we go there?
Yes, we can go there. Yes.
Okay. All right. So I have to, like, I introduce myself in some rooms. I'm in Al Anon every Tuesday night. I call it my Tuesday night church. And I introduced myself one time as I am the granddaughter, I am the daughter, I am the sister, and I am the mother of an alcoholic. And so over the years, when it started to really affect my family, I mean, alcohol had been part of our culture as a family. And as much as I loved my family and I still do, there was a lot of chaos. And so that little 6-year-old self had seen a lot and experienced a lot. And then, just all the things through life, and then having my own experience with alcohol. Like I drank alcohol, but I was the social drinker. But in my house, it was not good. But when you're a child, that's your normal. You don't know anything outside of that. And so I was raised oldest of 8 kids. Our home was full. It was 1,000 square feet with one bathroom.
Wow.
So it was loud. It was loving, but it was messy. It was definitely messy. And my mom was our little steady one. She was the woman that made sure we got to church on Sundays. She taught us about faith. And my dad kind of came along for the ride. He had his own experience, but she really kept us grounded in the storms. And that early exposure to God is why I say this is the reason I'm here today. And I'm not still living a horribly dysfunctional life, because it could have been bad. So
Mhm.
this growing up, in this environment shaped me, and I learned how to take care of everyone, which which turned later into a pattern of trying to control everything. So I became an
Mhm.
ER nurse. How perfect is that? Control the department, control the emergency, control the chaos. And I just kind of giggle, and I always, like I say, God is humorous. He's funny. He's like, well, you're going to go through this experience, but here's what I'm using it for. I became a really great ER nurse.
Mm.
But first, I'll back up a tiny bit, just quickly. At 17, I also became a mom, and at 18, a wife. And I remember thinking, all right, Lord, there has to be more than this.
Mm.
And I just felt him say, yes, there is. You are made for more. And I
Mm.
had a boy when I was working in Miller's Outpost is where I was working. And I was at the register checking him out, and he looked at me and said, what a waste.
Mm.
And that's when I just was like, again, heard a whisper, you're not a waste. You're made for more. You're here on purpose with a purpose. And so, he had the plan. He has the plan. He's still working the plan out, even when we can't see it. And I had no clue. I was definitely living on faith then. And so in these seasons, I just heard him say, because so now I'm a mom and I'm thinking, okay, what's next? Okay, Lord, show me the thing. I'm here, I'm waiting. But during those years of waiting, I heard him say, just be present. And when it was the right time, you and I were just talking about this, when it's the right time, then he said, okay, it's time for you to go back to school. And those doors started opening, like all the things. Like when you look at God shots and God winks and doors open and doors that close, they say doors that close sometimes might just be sticky doors. So don't think it's a door that's closing in your face. Oh, this isn't for me. It must not be for me. Like that drives me crazy. No, nobody said it was gonna be easy opening these doors or going
Now,
through the doors.
can I
No.
comment on that?
Yes, please.
So that can be Satan because Satan is going to make those thorns and thistles. When Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden because of their sin, then part of the curse was you're going to earn by the sweat of your brow. There's going to be thorns, there's going to be thistles. So, sometimes we think that's this resistance means I'm not supposed to do it, but actually it can be the opposite. it can mean you're on the right path, but Satan
Yes.
doesn't want you to succeed.
100%. Yeah. So I think of my door every time, Darlene. My door, when it's hot, it swells. When it's cold, it shrinks. And sometimes it opens easy and sometimes it doesn't, but I can still get in and out of that door.
Yeah.
I might need to call a
You still hit
repairman, but
yourself
hey,
in the face. Wow.
but it still works. Oh
It
my
still
goodness.
works.
Yeah. But, yeah, this led me all of this stuff, right? So I went back to school and it led me to a 30-year career in Western medicine. 22 years I worked in the ER where I felt comfortable because of all that chaos. You know, I saw the miracles, the heartbreak of people, but it really kept shaping my heart
Mm,
um, for that. And then, goodness, leadership, more things. So even early on, I realized I love building community. And so at age 25, when we had gotten our first job, my husband went to school to be a firefighter. It took him 3.5 years to get it and lots of no's, just FYI. He
mhm,
kept going because he knew this was his calling. So we get to Palm Springs. There is a beautiful community there, but there was bad morale. The morale was not good, and so I said, "I've had experience with women's auxiliary," and so I created one. I started it. It wasn't fancy. It was just, some of the wives coming together, and we were just serving, just loving, and just creating connection for our families, for our spouses, and so that was the beginning of this leadership journey, seeing a need, filling it, advocacy. Like advocacy has been a word for me too, advocating for people to have a voice, like my mom in a relationship with my father where addiction was, very present, very prevalent. And so I've just always thought and then patients that were sick, no voice, I wanted to be able to give that to them. So this thing that Phyllis does. This is just what keeps carrying me through every season. And it's funny how, um, God just keeps showing me new things to create, new ways to advocate. And this, so like fast forwarding now, where I was talking about the, um, addiction, bringing that back in is, um, this is where true peace and significance has really begun for me in the last 3 years.
mm.
You know? So,
Wow.
yeah, and I can
What led you
share more.
to see it more clearly than ever?
Yeah. So 3 years ago at Christmas time, my son came home. My prodigal son finally came home,
Oh,
and he'd been dealing with addiction, I know,
wow.
since he was about 15, maybe even sooner than that, but it doesn't really matter, right? That does not
Mhm,
matter, that's the past. But, alcohol's always been in my story, in my lineage, my family, my home. And I really didn't see it as a problem until it was really a problem in my son, even though I could say I'm not like them. I didn't drink daily, but I did share I drank socially.
mm,
So, um, uh, so what I didn't see, so I joined a program called Al-Anon, and I'm going to promote it. I know that they say it's not promotion. I'm not promoting it. I'm just offering it as a tool and a resource for someone who could really change your life like it did mine.
mhm,
And when I stepped in those doors, I realized, oh my gosh, my obsession with fixing him is my disease.
mm,
And I was trying to control all the drinkers around me. Anything that didn't feel safe to the 6-year-old Phyllis, I needed to control it.
mhm,
And so that is where, for the first time in my life, that was like, boom, opened up. I wanted to fix him. I wanted to manage him. I thought if I could just love him harder, lecture him more, if I could cry enough, that would just make him stop. But control is not the same as love. And I
mm,
had a counselor telling me, you cannot approach someone in this state with anything but love. And I kept thinking how I am so mad at him right now, you know? But when you are on your face, I called it ice water to the face. That's all I could think is somebody just splashed me with ice water. And I was like, I can't control this anymore.
mm.
I am I'm at the bottom. And step one is you become powerless
That's right.
over XYZ. I mean, fill in the blank, right?
Mhm.
Fill in the blank. So that is when I was like, I'm powerless. I'm at your feet, Lord. And all I could do was look up. And so, they say the same thing for the alcoholic is that they finally come to a place, hopefully, right, that they're seeing I'm powerless over this, but that was me. And so when I said, I can't do this anymore, he's yours. That was true surrender. But I thought I was surrendering him before that, not until I couldn't. And I was at my proverbial wit's end.
Mhm.
And then 30 days later, Darlene, he walks while he calls us and said, I think I want to come home. He hadn't said that in 15 years. He wanted to come home and start his journey to sobriety. And so I can leave it at that. And it was just one miracle after another with that. But his surrender led, or I guess that's my surrender led to his surrender,
Mhm.
which then just kept giving because I realized that alcohol in my life wasn't serving a purpose either. It wasn't the same amount, but it had the same stronghold.
Mhm.
So when I laid it down, I can honestly say I got sober
Mhm.
and my fog lifted and my peace returned. And that is when I found true joy and serenity that stays. Because when you experience it, like this is so key, when you experience it, you do not want to let it go. And if something or someone comes into your life that does not align with your peace and serenity, it's almost an easy no,
Mhm.
or it's an easy yes. Ooh, you bring me joy, peace, love, kindness, all the spiritual gifts. You can feel that. Like, it's just like Holy Spirit is living in you because now you've let him,
Mhm.
you've opened up the channels.
Yeah.
So it's like when I opened it up, higher power was like, here comes the floodgates. Here's some more purpose.
Mhm.
And things are coming to me now, like ideas, opportunities, connections. Um, they're starting to fly open. So my word this year is receive.
Mhm.
Is to receive it because I've done the planting seeds. I've done all the stuff, the hard work, and like I'll just call it holy hustle because I've always worked hard, trying to avoid burnout and stuff. But I feel like now it's just, what do you want from me today, Lord? Like that's how I start my day. Instead of throwing myself into something, I ask him first.
Mm. So good. It reminds me, my word for this year is stand, and it's a similar concept of very connected concept to receive, because I have sown and sown and sown and sown. And at first, my word was going to be believe. And I was putting that in chat, and you know how we all talk to chat now. And I was talking that out, and he was like, "You already believe. You you pour belief into other women. You pour belief into your family. You pour belief into how you serve in your church. It's time to stand. It's time to receive the fruit of your labor." And the verse that came to mind when I was reading that and praying and like, is this true? Is this what I should, take on as my word for the year? And Ephesians 6:13 came to mind, and it says, "Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And
Mm,
after you've done everything to stand, stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. And in addition to all of this, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one, and
mm,
take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God." And that passage just hit home with me so much that it was time to just like stand. And then when we combine that with Galatians 5, um, which we've already been talking about today, the fruit of the Spirit, then, what are we standing to receive? And, it's not just anything. What's most important is those spiritual gifts. And it says in verse 22 of Galatians 5, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, kindness, forbearance, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self control. And I think these are in that order that they're in. It isn't just random, that there is an order to it. And I do 12-step coaching. And so I
Mhm.
actually have a ladies, a women's only class that's open right now. It will close. And I teach the 12 steps similarly to Al Anon. And mine is a faith based program. I know a lot of Al Anon bring their faith into it. And I appreciate that so much. And the steps are very similar. Um, so, but the fruit of the Spirit is really key. And how do you get there? Because sometimes peace feels like this huge jump. Like, how am I going to get to love, joy, peace from
Yeah.
where I am? And I think a gateway is gratitude. And
Mm.
so, if we can just think of one thing a day, if you're living in the chaos, you haven't got to that point yet where Phyllis is describing in her story, your story, that,
Mhm.
like, I'm at my wits' end, the proverbial wits' end, but you
Mhm.
feel like I'm close, I'm close,
Yeah.
Gratitude is how you can start to shift it, and just stop and think of one thing that you're grateful for. I started doing that in 2018. I wasn't keeping a journal. Nobody had ever really talked to me about gratitude that much. But one mentor was starting to talk about it a lot. And I was like, you know what? I think I really need to grow in gratitude. And if I wasn't a journal person, but I decided I'm going to start writing down just one thing that I'm
Mm.
grateful for each day. And I did that year, I would write one thing. And I just kept it to one thing because I didn't want to overwhelm and quit. And it changed me, and it did help start creating a bridge to get to
Mhm.
the peace. I think peace comes next, and then love, or peace. For me, it's been gratitude, peace, joy, and then love.
Mm. Gratitude, peace, joy, and love. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love that. In our groups, I would say people will come in, when they first come in and they're at their wits' end. So nobody's coming in, they're having a good day. And you can see it, like they're tearful, they're anxious, they're angry. Oh, so much anger. And I had it too. I was filled with anger because it's fear, right?
Hmm.
Anger is just a
Yes.
byproduct of
I
being
started with anger
afraid.
too. I
Yeah.
started at Celebrate Recovery, which is very similar.
Mhm.
And I went expecting to fix my addict. I was the codependent, and
Mhm.
I just my counselor had recommended I go, and
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I'll go. And I knew I needed more support. I was needing support as well, and I went to a large group, and it's not that I fell in love or anything. I just could feel this tiny bit of like, I feel a difference because I
Mhm.
came, and
Yeah.
I need to keep coming to this. And I
Yeah.
did. And over
Mm.
time, the arrows went from turning out and
Mhm.
pointing to turning in. And they really
Yeah.
taught me that and said, okay, but you're focusing on you here. And I was like, that was like a jaw drop. Like, what?
Yeah,
Nothing's wrong with me.
right? And
It's
the 4th step tells you, "Let's look at our own characteristics first." Okay? That was what I know. This is part of the journey. That's why I said when I started, I was like, "The journey is cool." It is not
Yes.
it is full of self-discovery and things that you might not wanted to have admitted about yourself. Like for me, I went, "Huh, maybe I have a drinking problem." Like maybe what I'm drinking is creating problems, and that's what it was doing. I was picking fights with my husband and I was like, "Why am I doing that?" So, even what we were it started out as fun, it ends up in a fight, and I was like, that's not good either. So my son's journey led me to my own sobriety.
Wow.
And so I love
What a
that is by
surprise, right?
yeah, super surprised, like,
Mhm.
wow. Um, didn't even know. But yeah, I mean, it literally opened up the opportunities. So when I say like you remove all the junk, you start thinking, looking at you, like, what can I control? Oh, my attitude of gratitude, my attitude of service. Like maybe I can serve people, not control them. I can do things like that. And when I did that, I just allowed God to say, oh, look, you're being invited to coach in an elite membership. Oh, you've been offered speaking engagements in large organizations, the Alzheimer's group, the Parkinson's group. Um, I created my Carefolio that we talked about, the medical health care journal that helps people organize their care and hopefully reducing stress, right? And then stewarding
Mhm.
your health with clarity. That's what it does. And then I call it estate planning, but for your health. And we don't want any piece being robbed. And so, again, like the advocacy, the peace part portion, I just want people to experience that in all things that I do and all things that I create with God, because
Yes.
He's not a God of confusion. He makes it clear. But when I finally sat down to say, how do I combine all this? Because I'm like, I was a nurse. Now I'm doing, Carefolio and oh goodness, and coaching. And I was like, how do you wrap that all together? And I'm in the wellness community, in our supplements and stuff that we promote, but it's all connected. And so, I stand on a pillar of wellness, whether it's mind, body, spirit, like that's what aligns us and makes us whole. And so, removing those things allows God to pour this abundance into us. And yeah, since surrendering alcohol, and loving my son first, don't care about any of all the details because the ism will still be there sometimes, right?
Mhm.
The behaviors that were attached to alcohol, like it's been in my family for generations.
Mhm.
So, you can still have peace that surpasses all understanding. And that comes from God, whether the person in your life is still using or not. And to be able to experience that, watching people come in from that tearful, anxious, angry person to even 2 weeks later or 1 week later, something that was said in the room, just clicked for them, and the arrows pointing in, like, let's start thinking about you and worrying about you and taking care of you, because when we heal, guess what? Everyone else gets to do the same thing,
Yeah.
and we're not robbing them from their own journey and their experience, because how do I know what's right for you? I don't. Just like other people don't know what's right for me, but all I can do is just say, Lord, what was my quote? Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" And I said, "Here I am, send me." That's Isaiah 6:8. I used to just always say, "Use me, God, use me. My hands are open, my heart is open." And so I just want to ask people out there, what does that look like for you? Have you surrendered? What does that feel like? Is it scary? Does it sound scary, opening your heart and truly trusting and handing over the things, the people, places, and things that we want to like hang on to and white knuckle grip? I just say, like, you know, sit quiet with God, offer it to him, and see what he does with it, because he'll blow your mind. He'll
Yeah.
blow your mind.
Yes. Well, I'm so thankful you were able to come and share more of your story today and just how God is moving and using you because you did choose to surrender and the power of that. Your testimony really is such an encouragement to me and
Mhm.
all of my listeners to surrender as well. So, thank you
Oh,
so much,
thank
Phyllis.
you. Thank you, Darlene.
Thank you for tuning in to You Are Significant, I hope that this episode helped you to embrace your own God given purpose. Please share this out with a friend and remember to subscribe. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, walk in faith, find the joy, and stand in your own significance.